Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for coming to our third session in the Building a Data Science Team series. Before we get started with our panel today, we have three excellent speakers with us today. I want to talk a little bit about ELU and also this series. My name is Lara. I am the community manager at ELU. I'm also joined here by Christella, who is our relationship lead. And European Leadership University is a next generation university where we focus on creating job-ready tech talent, because there's a shortage, or at least a gap of the talent, especially in the Netherlands or in the EU, and the actual skills and the skill set required on the floor in the organizations. So this is why we have a competency-based program. But at the same time, we have also realized now in the 2 years that we're in action that there's quite some education to do in the market itself. And also that people within the data science and the AI industry would like to come together more. And it is for this reason that we're offering this free training series for tech recruiters and junior data talent as well, to talk about building data science teams. So we've already talked a bit about the basics, the different roles in data science, and the different skills you should be looking for. And today in our third session, we will be talking about building and assembling the team, both from a kind of recruitment perspective, but also retaining and educating that talent in your organization. So without further ado, I want to pass it on to Christella. One last remark: if you have any questions during the session, you can drop them either in the chat or in the QA box down below in the Zoom controls, and we'll do our best to either answer them right away or surely by the end of the session. So thank you again for joining. Great to have you, and do contribute with your questions.
Yes, thank you, Laura, and also on my behalf, welcome everyone. And thank you to our three panelists for joining me this afternoon. I'm very happy about that. I'll shortly introduce them. So my name is Christella. I'm the relationship manager at ELU, and I have a background in data science recruitment. I'm joined tonight by Bart Manintveld, who is a data scientist, has a background in applied physics, worked as a Deloitte consultant at Eneco, and now has built up his own data team for Maandag. Also with us is Dawi Ozinga, who is a senior IT recruiter, who's done recruitment worldwide, also done remote recruitment for large companies such as Friesland Campina, Shell, and now works at Binder. She'll join us from that perspective. And last but not least is Marten de Schipper, who has a background in health, but is one of the co-founders of Xomnia and is now COO at Data Science Lab, as you can see from his background as well. Guys, and thank you for being here. So tonight we're going to talk about how to assemble your data teams, the different strategies in doing that. Where do you find the right people, and how do you work together from different perspectives? I'd like to start with an opening question to all of you. You can use that question to shortly introduce yourself if you want to add anything more. And that is, so you've all been building up data or tech teams from different perspectives, different roles. But what is the most important lesson that you have learned in the last years in doing that? And perhaps you, Bart, could start?
Thank you, Christella. Well, I think I started at Maandag a little over a year ago. And when I started building the marketing intelligence function first, since Maandag didn't have it yet. And a few months later, we added the BI team to my team, to the people that I hired, to create a bigger data team of around 7 people. I think the biggest lesson I learned in doing that is the importance in creating a good team culture. So what I really value highly is a culture in the team where open discussion is encouraged, and where people are basically very autonomous in doing their work. And when you create this kind of team culture, it also allows you to adapt quickly when circumstances are changing. So I think, yeah, that's my most important lesson.
Right, and I'm wondering, how do you do that? Create that open culture?
I think there's two ways to do it. First is by being a good example as a team lead. So by being vulnerable, also about the mistakes that you make yourself and your own insecurities. And I think also when you form a new team or when you hire new people, by really addressing it explicitly. So really having a meeting or a team day, maybe at a separate location, where you discuss these values just with your own team members, with your colleagues.
All right, thank you very much. What about you, Davi? Could you tell us your greatest lesson in building up teams?
Yes, sure. Welcome everybody also from me. So I think the greatest lesson, and it's over the years that I've been in recruitment, and I don't think it's particularly only for data science teams, but with the tight labor market, I think it's very important that it's more of a team effort. So you can be the recruiter. So of course, as a recruiter, you are in the lead, and you need to, at the end of the day, get the results, and that there is a team. But because of the tight labor market, it's just, I think, too difficult to do it by yourself. So you need the whole team. So everybody needs to be aligned. You need, I think, also the network of people who are already in the team. You need their insights, because in some cases they might be on certain fora or platforms that maybe I as a recruiter have never heard about. So that can be very helpful. So you really need everybody's input to find good candidates, but also to get them on board. Again, in this tight labor market, a lot of data science experts are approached by recruiters, I think maybe even more than once a day. So I'm not that special anymore. So I really need to help also for that with the team. And in some cases, it might be a good idea if I don't approach them directly, but we will find somebody in the team who has maybe a better connection with somebody, or who understands the language of that person better than I do. And that can be an easy opener, let's say, to get somebody maybe interested in a role at your company. Yeah, so working together, I think that's the most important lesson I've learned over the years.
Yeah, I recognize that, and it's something we'll get back to later. This collaboration between HR and the people in the team. But first, what about you, Marten? What is the most important lesson that you have?
Hi, thank you. Well, I think I have a lot of learnings over the past years, but I follow Bart a lot with the culture team. So, and I think a really important thing is to facilitate them on a proper way, and that means I always say, and I can say that data scientists are a bit weird at first, so you have to get to know them, and if you really give them their space and you let them be who they are, which are great persons, by the way, because they're really pure in who they are and what they say and what they think, the most beautiful things can come out of their heads and hands. So I think facilitating them on a good way really helps. For example, I still remember that one of our data scientists and a client, he on his first day, he put off his shoes and socks and just sit with the client, and everybody was looking at in their suits like, what is he doing? And I said, yeah, I always do that because then I can think. And well, yeah, if you let that do them like that, they can do great things. Yeah.
Yeah, so accept them the way that they are as well, make them feel sort of at home almost.
Yeah, exactly, and they're just different than the marketing people, for example.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
So that's actually a follow-up question on that is, as when you're not a data scientist yourself, how how do you make sure that you align with them? Because you don't always speak their language, right?
I never speak their language. I would say I don't understand anything what you do, but that's mainly probably my force, because I can help them by just asking a lot from them, like, what do you need? How can I facilitate you better? And then yeah, if I do that, then that works out. Yeah.
Right. And do you recognize this as well, Davi, from your role?
Yes, I recognize that. I don't understand it either. So, and I'm not trying to. So, yeah. And I was reading an interesting piece online, a Harvard Business Review research that was about motivating people. And yeah, back in the day, it was more about, they call it the carrot and the stick approach, where you try to motivate people in your team with either money or a promotion. But it's not like that anymore. So it's more that you really have to look into what is the relevance and what impact can they have in the team. They think about their development. You need to
Do you have
appreciate.
enough puzzles?
Sorry?
Do you have enough puzzles for them?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you really need to think about what makes them feel good in their job. It's just not the money anymore. It's much more than that. So yeah, it was a very interesting read. So, and I think that has really changed over the years. But I think there's still a lot that companies can win in that. Yeah, to keep their teams happy.
Right. I'll get back to you about that in a bit. I was wondering, Bart, because you now build up your own team, but you've also been on the other side, right? That you were recruited as a data scientist. What made you feel like you wanted to work somewhere, or that you were appreciated for who you are?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think Martin's comment is really an important one. There needs to be enough interesting puzzles to solve at the company. So I think if the company is working in an interesting field, or I have the feeling, oh, I can do some really interesting stuff here as a data scientist that I don't understand yet, then that is a big driver for me to want to go work there. And I think also maybe when I look at my team now, that's maybe the biggest common denominator. It's just they're just innately curious people,
Right. Yeah, that's something I recognize as well. So they're really driven by how interesting their work is, and not indeed by money or power or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was wondering, Bart, from your perspective, because you've been hiring people at Maandag yourself, and I guess you work together with HR as well, right? And from my experience, it's always a puzzle. What role does a recruiter have, and what role does a data scientist have in the hiring process? Did you find an ideal way of doing this, or what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think at Maandag I had a good collaboration with our recruiters there. I think they really helped me in assessing the personality types of the candidates, and also seeing how they could fit into the team of other people I currently had working for me. And I think I, as a team lead, played more of a role in doing like the technical part of the interview and trying to assess their hard skills. So I think maybe that's a good way to go about it. At least it worked well for me. Maybe if I were to start hiring some people again, I'd also ask one of my team members to do one of the interviews. Just because I think it's really important that a new hire fits in the team, and that they can also work well together and have a click with the other colleagues.
Right. Davi, I see you nodding. You want to
Yeah, I was
jump
like,
in?
yes. Yeah, I totally agree. So I recognize what Bart is saying. And if I look at Binder, at how we do it now is that we do involve team members also in the interview process. So I think it starts in the beginning with a good briefing session, right? And in my opinion, the best way to do that is to involve the whole team. So everybody is aligned and everybody knows what we are looking for, because you don't want to go back and forth in the process. And you don't want to lose any good candidates in that process. So it's very important to start with the right information. And along the way, not along the way, you also then decide who does what. So I agree with Bart. I can imagine that the recruiter will look more at the basic requirements and also at the culture fit, where the team will probably look more into the technical side of the role. And then in the end, that comes together. But yeah, so we also have, in some cases, a team afternoon where we invite the candidate to the office. Not anymore, of course, but we used to do that. When you invite somebody to the office and they can, walk along for the afternoon with the team, you can then feel the culture from both sides. And I think it's also a good way to, I think get buy-in from the rest of the team if this person is really a good asset to the team. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering as well, Marten, about your thoughts on this, because I think when you started at Xomnia, there wasn't a culture yet to fit in, right? You started building that with a lot of young people. How do you do that? How do you create a culture in which everyone feels heard, like they can share their thoughts and they can excel there?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of hard to. Well, if people notice that they can be themselves and there's no pressure on how they should look or how they should talk or how they should or how they should work with certain programs, or they can do whatever they want, and they are not like how do you say, they're not challenged by all implications of a company or legacy or stuff like that. They feel they can come up with ideas or that kind of stuff. And if you promote that, and if you listen to them and come up with ideas to facilitate that, I think that then you create it by learning and doing all the time. And yeah. More like that.
Is it also a little bit about leading by example?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if you start by showing them that you can be vulnerable or open, and it starts there. Yeah. For example, if you work, come to the office in shorts, everybody knows that it's
everybody comes in shorts.
That's yeah, sure.
All right. So, as you all know, I think in the data market, like getting people on board is one thing, but like Bart already mentions, keeping them on board and keeping them happy is another. Data scientists, data professionals are indeed called all the time by recruiters and approached all the time. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. Like, how do you make sure that people stay on board with you and that they stay connected to your company and not isolated? Any thoughts on
Yeah, well, I think it's a combination of all the answers we heard or we talked about already. It's like you have to have puzzles on your big challenges for them on intellectual level. You need to have the conditions right. Like, of course, the salary should be okay. It's not the most important, I agree, but it should be okay. All the things around it, and then you come up with point like you should listen to them and facilitate what they need. And if there's a lot of legacy or there are a lot of meetings and they cannot have enough time to do their programming on during the day, and they are like, if people don't want to understand that data scientists need at least a couple of hours and maybe days to solve a problem and then program it or code it, and you don't acknowledge that, then they don't feel like they can be their best version of themselves, I think. And I think that's, for me, the most important thing. And of course, some people, they really want to have like different projects all the time. Some people are more like into building like one big thing for a higher level. That depends, and that also depends what kind of company you will work. But yeah, I think that is really important.
So it's a lot about facilitating their needs and the way that they are, right? As a person and as a professional. Do you think that is something that is happening now because of the scarcity in the market, or do you think that that is something that is the future for all fields?
Well, yeah, it's both. I think it's because of there are not many, so you want to keep them, but it's also it's different, you know. Like you need, for example, quiet rooms to work in, or that's an important thing. Yeah, that's different if you combine it, or if you compare it to people who work in sales or in marketing. So you cannot make that the same, but yeah, listening to people always works, I think. Yeah.
Do you recognize this, Bart, both as a professional yourself and in your team?
Oh yeah, I think I totally agree with Marten. Creating enough time to focus for your team members is crucial, and it can be quite difficult to create enough uninterrupted time if you're not careful. So I think this is a really important responsibility of the team lead. I think in addition to Marten, maybe it depends a bit on the personality type of the data scientist. But I think there's also like non-data or non-technical ways to satisfy their curiosity. You know, if you give a data scientist responsibility to like really manage their own projects, or maybe even experiment in a new role, they also enjoy that often in my experience. So
Right, so it doesn't all have to be hardcore coding as long as they are challenged in their yeah. Any additions on this, Davi, or do you?
Well, I was wondering, I can imagine that they also are probably interested in some kind of talent management program with learning and development. I don't know if that's, I mean, I'm not a team manager of a data science team, but I can imagine that for those who want to grow and learn, they probably want to know, okay, what does that mean? Is that also something that you both work with?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You're completely right. I think we didn't mention that yet, but keep on learning for them is a really important thing. So you can build a program for it, but also like the more media or senior data scientists, they also always want to expand their knowledge. So that's why they are doing their job. So yeah, that's also again a little bit of facilitating training programs, for example. Yes.
Yeah, I think there's different ways to go about this. You know, the training or talent management programs is one thing, but learning on the job by just doing challenging and new projects is another.
Right. The best if you have a combination, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is all about when you have a team assembled, but you've also worked on finding the right people, and before you have the first conversation, you need to spot them and get in touch. For you, Bart, where did you find most of your new team members? Is this indeed through your own network or on LinkedIn or on events? Where do you find new data professionals nowadays?
Well, I've found most good people with help from Maandag recruiters, actually. But they're pretty good at finding the right type of person just by looking on LinkedIn to see to find people with the right profile that are maybe already in their job for somewhere between 1 to 3 years. So I think that's the type of candidate that we looked for, and also that we actively try to contact, and we find some great hires through that. Also through our own network. Actually, one of the analysts in my team, his wife applied to us. She didn't get the job, but he was also looking for a job since he came from the US. And we did end up hiring him, so that was interesting. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to find good people. Also, if you maybe not too picky about having a certain number of years of experience in a certain tool, but if you look more at general ability.
Right, and so you scouted them worldwide as well. So it wasn't just in the Netherlands, but you relocated people.
Yeah, well, he already decided to relocate himself. He's a Dutch guy that worked in the US for a few years, and he was looking for new work in the Netherlands. So it wasn't exactly that we relocated him, but we did offer him a job.
Right,
when he came here.
that's
Yeah.
Perfect. I think you, Dawi, have some experience in this as well, right? Like relocating people or building up teams. Is that also mostly through LinkedIn, or is it very different to get in touch with people from abroad?
Not too different. There are maybe some other boards that you can use, and you have to do some research. Of course, depends on what country you're talking about. So yeah, if you do a research, then you will find the right job board, so you can use that. But in most cases, LinkedIn is of course the first thing to start with. And to be honest, we also get a lot of applicants who apply by themselves. So that's also very, I think interesting. But most of them are from abroad. So there's something that maybe people from outside of the Netherlands like to work in the Netherlands. So yeah, that's, I think, still a good thing. But we look also a lot abroad. Yeah, we have a lot of people from out of, I don't know, I think we have like 42 different nationalities.
Specific regions or specific countries that are emerging in the data field or in the tech field?
I think, no, it varies. It varies. It's not like, I mean, we had, of course, a period where a lot of people came from India, for instance. But yeah, that's also still the case. But now it's just from everywhere. There's not a particular region where I see them coming from. No. But you, as a company, you have to be open to it. To think about relocating people, but also maybe to be open to work with people who work remotely. So yeah, with the COVID, that's maybe easier to think about because that's almost the only option we have right now. But you have to be open to that.
Right. And do you see an increase in building remote teams, not just now with COVID, but in the past years?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you think it's maybe that's a question for all of you. Do you think that's the new normal as well?
Maybe. Yeah, I think I think everybody is still kind of hoping that everything turns back to normal because that kind of worked. So I understand that people are comfortable with that, but I also think that we have seen now that it can be also a good thing if we start thinking about remote teams. So yeah, in some companies they do it already, but not too many. So you really have to have a plan behind it, because it's not super easy. You really have to have everything in the right place. You have to facilitate everything to make sure that it is really a team, because that's the biggest challenge, right? How do you make sure that this is a team? And you know, what part can you do remotely or maybe offshore? So that's also something that you really need to think about, and you really have to have a plan behind it. Otherwise, it's not going to be a success.
I think maybe I can chip in. At Maandag, we also, not for data science professionals, but we do have an offsite team in Poland. And the way we make it work is by like having a special conference room just to talk to the other side, you know, also by having regular exchanges with our Polish colleagues. So they come to the Netherlands often, the managers here go to Poland often, and in that way a sense of collaboration is established. But I think it would be very hard, especially since Maandag is so locally oriented, to fully place the team in another country, you know, just because some part of the business understanding of the problem is, I think, also determined just by culture, language, those kind of things.
Right, and that's also because you're connected to your clients here as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, Martin? Do you have any experiences in working remotely or with people from abroad?
Yes, but then they were just in the company, so not abroad, like working from another country remotely. I don't have any experience in that. No.
And do you think, if you look at the Netherlands now, a lot of people are saying there's simply not enough data professionals here for everything that's going on and everything that's going to happen at all the companies. So companies are going to have to do either relocation or offshoring. Do you agree?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. I don't know. I think there is enough, but the problem is there's a lot of choice for those people. So that makes it really tough to find your good data scientist, and the demand will become bigger and bigger. So, but if you look at the universities at the moment, there are so many data science or artificial intelligence studies at the moment. So I think it will go together, like the demand will be bigger, but there will be also more data scientists or more data professionals. Of course, they need to have a good training. In 1 year, you're not a great data professional yet, but yeah, it will go quicker and quicker, I think. Yeah.
Right. Maybe continuing on what you mentioned about all these new institutions who start educations for data scientists. Do you think that education is more important, so having a specific background as a data scientist, or experience, for example, in coding yourself as a young guy or girl?
I think education is important, but the most important thing is passion for data science. My best employees were the data scientists were the people who just worked on the room for years on their own project in the evening, like and continued all night because they want to predict, you know, horse races or whatever, and do that for their fun or and make some money with it. And those guys were the best. I have one example of a guy who didn't have any education, and I hired him. He made streets because he didn't have any education, but he learned himself coding, and he found out he's quite smart, and he's one of the best data scientists I ever know. But he didn't have any graduation or whatever. So if you're self-learners are really. So yeah, that's it's important, but it's not a deal breaker for me.
All right. What about you, Bart? Do you agree?
Yes, I sort of agree with Marten. To be honest, I haven't met any guys like of the sort that Marten is describing. But I do think that you don't necessarily need to have a degree in data science or business analytics to succeed in this role. You know, there's a lot of different educational backgrounds that can make you suitable to be a data scientist. You know, either when you come from a technical or quantitative field, or from an IT professional, or even when you're in healthcare or statistics. You know, there's all kinds of different study backgrounds with which you can succeed in this role. I think I am always looking for some amount of innate ability, you know, and I think education is one way to prove it. Also, if you have a lot of own projects like Marten is describing, that's another way. But you do need to have like some innate ability to structure problems, have fun programming, doing that kind of stuff.
Right. And for you, Dawi, as a recruiter, what do you pay attention to in hiring? Is it indeed the amount of projects that someone did, or do you?
I think it's probably both, and it kind of depends on what we are looking for, right? I mean, if we need to fix, let's say, a problem with a vacancy, and you really need somebody who's been there, done that, then I mean, that's it. So then you look for somebody who has experience and probably also has the background in education, or at least in proof in projects that somebody has done. So I think it's a combination, but I think the passion for this job, I think that's very important, because otherwise it's, I don't know why you would be in it anyway, but then if you don't have the passion for it, then I don't see that it's going to work. So but if you're looking for a junior, then I agree also with Bart. Then there are more things that you can look for, but then you don't have maybe somebody who is maybe within the first 2 or 3 months who can have a real good impact. Then you give that person, of course, more time, maybe 1 or 2 years, to get better and better in his role. Yeah, but that's also an option. Yeah.
Right. And if you were recruiting data scientists, either more junior or senior, except for apart from this passion, what were other soft skills that you're mostly looking for?
I think the problem solving skills, of course, is very important. And in some cases, it kind of depends on, does this person need to work a lot with other maybe departments? Then you want to have good communication skills, and not everybody has that, but if you do have that type of job, then that's of course a very important thing. And yeah, I mean, if it's somebody who doesn't have the experience, then I would also look also for somebody who is not somebody who will give up easily, so who's very tenacious. And I would maybe see that in that, you know, how did they finish their education, or maybe they did something in their personal life that requires a lot of dedication. So, because I think that's also an important trait for this role.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I think people from the outside might expect it to be all about the hard skills, but actually
no,
you're saying that it's super important in these roles as well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. I think I got from Lara that there was a question from our audience.
Yeah, I would love to bring in a question from the audience, and also thank you to the panel. I think it's going great so far. Very exciting discussion. A question from Omar. He is a software architect with experience in data science and security. If I look at the universities, they have a lot of data science projects, a lot of focus on data science courses. And that's why he's focusing more on security than data science, because he expects a surplus of data scientists in the future, since universities or education is focusing so heavily on it. So what is your opinion on this? Do you expect that right now this maybe shortage will be followed by a surplus because it's so trendy to do maybe data science now?
Can I?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
I think it is here to stay for, I don't know how long, but I don't see it getting easier for us to find good data scientist people. So, but if you look at security, that's of course also an interesting field, which is also going to stay very important over the next coming years. So yeah, I think both are interesting, but I wouldn't say that data scientists we're going to have too much data scientists. I don't see that happening soon.
Right, but I can imagine that because the field is evolving, you do see these specializations, right? Data science,
True.
like maybe just calling you a data scientist might not be enough at some point. Do you see that happening, or not yet?
I think, yeah, probably, but maybe Bart and Marten know more about this, but I can imagine that there's going to be some niche in the role. So yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think Omar has a point. Maybe data science was a bit of a hype in the last few years, and maybe we're getting at the end of the hype cycle. I agree with Dawi that I don't think as a data science student that you need to fear for your job or for your job prospects, but I do think there's only a certain number of people that can be employed as like a hardcore data scientist doing only predictive modeling. You know, just seeing at the kind of problems that pop up at our company, I think a lot of them can already be solved by a business intelligence solution or by a data analyst. And there's only a certain amount of problems where you really want to like dig in and solve it by making some predictive model.
Right. What about you, Marten? Do you see the same?
Yeah, I agree, and I think if you look at privacy or security, it's also maybe a part of data engineering, and that goes together a lot with data science, of course. So those two areas go really together, and in that field there will be even more work, I think. So sometimes they say you need, for one data scientist, you need 5 data engineers. Yeah, I think in the future we will see even more people needed for that area. But it's also, you can make that step if you start with data science, and if you like solving problems, solving puzzles, then you probably like the data science part more. If you're more interested in just getting something done and really have an output of what you're doing, and no uncertainty about what's coming out of the data model, then engineering is maybe a cool thing, and that goes good together with security or privacy challenges.
Right.
In addition to what Marten is saying, I think that as data science is maturing as a profession, the engineering part is becoming more and more important. You know, a few years ago, I think the field was maybe a bit more exploratory. Well, now there are more like standard libraries, packages, and software solutions available to do a lot of the more common modeling stuff. And just getting the whole engineering solution right so it works every time is getting more and more important in the field.
Yeah.
So, and do you think that this means that companies are indeed changing their hiring strategies in that sense, with their choices?
I do think so, yeah. I think to really get the whole data engineering part right, I'm looking for more of an engineer type or more an IT type than maybe I would have a few years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope this answers your question, Omar. Otherwise, I'll hear from Lara, I think. Thank you, guys. Following up on this, since the field is evolving so quickly, is it smart if you need a new expertise in your team or within your company? Let me phrase it differently. When would you choose to do a new hire, and when would you invest in upskilling? Maybe some of you have had to make these kind of choices. So do you invest in new hires or in educating your own people when you need a new expertise? Do you have any thoughts on this? Maybe Marten?
Well, yeah, it really depends. I think depends where your company or your team is with data science skills. So if I talk for myself, I work at a consultancy data science company. And sometimes I work with companies who are not that far yet on the maturity scale. So then it's really helpful to scale up your people by hiring maybe somebody from a consultancy firm. That's probably the best way to learn, because then you learn from somebody who's has already some experience. And sometimes it can be really helpful to do the other way around. So you hire somebody in your team and with different experiences which the team doesn't have yet. It depends a little bit. I think upskilling is something you do along the way, but you can do that via hiring a new person or hiring somebody from a consultancy firm to get new skills or new knowledge in your team. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. And for you, Dawi, from your perspective, I think you've been at companies where they needed to add knowledge quickly, right, to their team because they were lacking behind maybe. Was it always the first choice to hire, or did you see also companies investing in education?
To be honest, in most cases it was a hire. Yeah, because, and that was, I think, maybe because they really needed the knowledge ASAP, right? So, but if you have a little bit more time, then then you would prefer, of course, to see if there's anybody in your team who can maybe pick this up quickly, and that's a win-win, right? It's, I mean, it's if you are looking for, it's a cheaper solution, but I think it's also a good solution to keep the team motivated and keep people on board. So yeah, if you do have the time, I would prefer to do it with upskilling. But yeah, if it's really
most of the
urgent,
time they need someone yesterday, right?
Yeah, yes, that's in most cases the reality. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I recognize that.
I think when I was still working as a consultant and working at different clients, it often surprised me how often companies tried to solve a problem by hiring a person instead of upskilling. So I do think that there's a lot of potential in getting value by upskilling your own people.
And why do you think that choice was made? What was it indeed the rush? Like, oh, we need someone now, or?
Yeah, maybe also that companies don't always see the potential of their own people. They just think, oh, that person is good at doing A and B, but they don't see that that person also has the ability to learn C.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm wondering how you could enhance that, right? Like how do you make sure that you see the full potential when someone is working in a role? Do you do that, Bart, with the people in your team, or how do you make sure that you keep seeing them for the things that they could do?
That's an interesting question. I think like talking to them often about their ambitions is an important one, but I think also just by experimenting a little bit, you know, sometimes doing smaller proof of concept projects, or giving someone a role that they maybe normally wouldn't have, just to see if they succeed, while still supporting them if they're having some trouble. I think those are ways to go about it, but that's also something with which I'm still experimenting in my team. So.
Right. So we'll do a comeback session next year.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thanks, Lara. I was wondering, are there any more questions that you received, maybe from the
I think we had some questions that also were kind of answered like in the process, including talking about like remote work, international hiring, and how to like whether to invest in more experienced people or maybe junior talent. So I think we're doing pretty good on the questions.
All right. That's good. I see there's one in the Q&A. Oh, but yeah, that's the one about the junior candidates. We're coming to the end already of the hour. So for the panelists, Bart, Dawi, and Marten, it's also the first time I think you've spoken to each other in this group. Do you have any questions for each other, or for us or the audience?
Yeah, I was thinking about something, because we also work a lot with interns. So I was wondering if Bart and Marten also have experience with that, because that can also be an interesting thing, of course, to give an intern the opportunity, right? But also to maybe have somebody in your team the opportunity to learn a little bit more about coaching and managing. But also it can be a good way to attract people to your company in the future. So I was kind of wondering if Bart and Marten have some experience with that.
Well, yes, I think what we are developing sometimes new projects. It's hard to send an intern, for example, to a client, but internally we develop products, and then it's really interesting to give them a spot, and they can learn developing, or sometimes they bring a lot of knowledge, because yeah, you underestimate easily that they are having so much knowledge already, the young youngsters. So yeah, we try to do that, but it's not always easy, because it has to fit in their schedule. But it's a good way to meet new talents, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Marten. I think you can get a lot of knowledge from an intern, just also because they have fresh experience from university sometimes. But it's not always an easy fit. I think the team already has to be quite mature itself to be able to make it work. And also sometimes I've seen it fail just because the intern didn't get enough coaching, you know? And sometimes after 3 months, everyone said, oh, let's look what the guy's been doing for the past 3 months. And then you won't get any value from it as a company, and also for the intern, it's a bad experience, I think. So.
Yeah, so it might need a bit more investment, I guess, in time, than someone who has a couple of years.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, we had once an intern, and he made a self-driving boat in Amsterdam. So that was kind of a success. It's now a company.
That one.
Yeah.
That was
nice.
an intern?
Yeah. That was an intern, yeah. He told us, give us your most difficult problem. Said, okay, we have a boat, and it's damaged all the time because we drive into other boats, and then he made a self-driving boat. So it can be good.
That's cool.
Really cool. Yeah, they
Very
can,
cool.
they can surprise you. Yeah. All right. If there's no more questions from you or from the audience, I would like to end with one last question for all of you, which is if there's people listening, obviously, who want to build up teams, maybe start building up a team, either as a recruiter or as a data professional. What is the best advice that you can give them when they want to start building up a data team? It's a tough one, maybe, but give it a try.
Interesting. Well, all the things that we mentioned, I think, make sure that you know what you're looking for, make sure that you have everything in place to keep everybody on board, that you facilitate them and look at them, I think, as an individual, and work closely together with HR, recruitment, and the whole team. I think, those are the 3 things that probably will help you be more successful in it. Yeah, and keep an open mind. Don't think, okay, this doesn't sound familiar, that it doesn't work. You have to keep an open mind. Maybe look at international candidates or remote or offshore or interns. You have to, or young professional programs. You have to keep everything open.
Yeah, so be creative as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
List. Do you have anything to add to that, guys?
I think be completely honest and transparent about everything. That's my thing I always try to do, and that works really good.
That's a good one. One that is often forgotten, I think. Bart?
I think when you're just starting out with your team and you're just with a few people, like the first few hires are really crucial because they will really determine what kind of team you will become. So I think also like the personality match is really important, I really try to see also, would I like to have a beer with this person on Friday? Because you will be working with them every day. So I think that's a big one.
Thank you. I think Christella's internet might have just acted up right at the end.
I'm back, but yes.
All right.
Good timing. I didn't get your last sentence, Bart, but I'm sure it was good, and we came to the end. So yes, thank you, and I'm gonna give the floor to you, Lara.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this was very exciting. It was the first time that we had multiple voices, and I think I would hope we can have more panels with the future webinars, because for me it was very exciting to see very different experiences come together, and yet you all kind of echo each other in many ways too. So thank you, the 3 of you, and thank you, Christella, as well, for moderating the conversation. And thanks to the audience also for joining and bringing in questions. Next week, we have our 4th session in the series. We will be speaking with David Stevenson on management strategies. So how do you manage a data science team or a data team? So if you are interested in maybe becoming, or you are a leader in this field, that would be a great session to join too. So thank you, everyone, and the recording will be up tomorrow.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.